Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tesla Live number 189. Here we are, the 17th of February, 2021. How are you out there today? Hope you're all good. As normal, we've got our regular cast with us. Mr. Casey Green joins us from DC. How are you today, sir?
Just 1 degree above freezing.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, that's nothing for here, but okay. I understand it. I understand it well. Also, Mr. Connor joins us from the West Coast. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. We are staying warm here. We had a freeze come through on Valentine's Day, and we did lose power for a couple hours, but the power walls kicked in and everything was great. So luckily I had those, and we haven't lost power in this house ever. We've been here 12 years, so we got those power walls just in time. So that was great.
And when that happened, Patrick, when you lost your power, was there a flicker at your house? Because of course the power wall doesn't know until it actually happens, right?
Right. Yeah. So there was probably like a millisecond where the lights flickered. Yeah. And that's what got my attention, and I'm like, oh, the TV's still going, and that means the internet is still on. So I don't think we lost power until I looked out the front window, and my neighbors' houses are all black, just dark, and the street lights are out. And I'm like, oh, maybe something did happen. Let me check the app. Yep. So then I ran around the house. We turned off the outside lights and started unplugging things and. Just to, hypermile the power walls a little bit. And it was funny because at one point I'm turning stuff off and shutting stuff down and unplugging things. And my wife's like, okay, we're sitting here in the dark. We could do that for free without the power wall. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, but the furnace still
Let's turn on everything.
Yeah. I imagine if you
were... our neighbors what we got.
Right? I imagine if you were on 100% battery at the time that it might not have even flickered.
Yeah, they were at 100% full. I think
not full, but I mean, like if you're drawing from them, because you were probably in Stormwatch.
Yeah.
Right. So we were in Stormwatch. Stormwatch happened like 2 days before because there was a weather alert for the region. So Tesla was smart and knew that, and that's the only time you can charge up from the grid is when you're in Stormwatch mode. If you have solar panels, then they charge just from the solar panels exclusively, and so they were setting it at full. And because it's in Stormwatch, they don't do their normal cycle. Like now we're not in Stormwatch, and in an hour they're going to come on because that'll be peak time, and so we'll use the batteries instead of the grid during the peak time. But not when you're in Stormwatch mode. You can always just turn off Stormwatch mode if you're not worried about it, or you have whatever reasons you want. If we were running from the batteries at that time, we probably would not have seen the flicker, and I just would have had to notice my neighborhood was dark or some alert from the app. I'm sure there was an alert. I just wasn't looking at my phone, and don't have it set to chime really loud at every notice because I don't want to be a slave to my phone. I want it to be my tool, not the other way around.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really cool. I was happy that the outage didn't last that long. We were lucky. There are parts of the country where things are a lot worse. Even parts of Oregon that are a lot worse. And certainly what's happening in Texas is horrible. Some people, hey, if you're out there, make sure that if you have a generator, it's not in your house. If you want to run your car to stay warm, don't do that in your garage. And if you take it out in your driveway, make sure that the tailpipe isn't blocked by snow, because that can trap the exhaust, and you can be poisoned just as well, even though you're outside. So be smart, be mindful, stay warm, stay safe.
Yeah, the CO2 emergencies are off the charts, obviously.
Yeah.
With people not being used to it. So
right.
I might need to hook mine up or sell it.
Yeah. There are times like people that have Teslas, if they're doing rolling blackouts where the power is going to be back in a couple hours or whatever, you can go sit in your car, put on romance mode, or crank up the heat and watch Netflix wrapped up in a blanket, and then 2 hours later the power comes back and your car charges back up, and Yeah, you didn't have heat or electricity during that time, but that's okay if you stayed warm and safe. And since those don't have exhaust, you don't have to worry about going being killed by your car. That's a good thing.
So just knock down the wall in your house and drive the car right into the living room.
You don't already have a car display in your living room?
Touche. Well, let's get to this week's news. We got a ton of it. Patrick's going to kick it off with something that might be coming back, which would be a big plus for a lot of Americans.
That is right. So this is on Teslarati by Simon Alvarez, and it's titled "Tesla to Gain Access to 400,000 More $7,000 EV Tax Credits from the Biden administration." So this is all part of the GREEN Act, which stands for Growing Renewable Energy and Efficiency Now, obviously backronymed. But so this act would have a lot of things in it. One of them is to take the existing tax credit that most EV manufacturers still have. Tesla's hit their limit and phased out of it, but it adds another 400,000 to that. So the initial 200,000 you have under the existing program, and then instead of that going into a phase out, it then for the next 400,000 switches to this new program, and this new program you get $7,000 per vehicle instead of $7,500, so just a small step down. And then after you've hit that 600,000 limit, it goes into a phase out. The old phase out was 50% for 2 quarters and then 25% for 2 quarters, so it phased out over a year. This new one is 50% for 1 quarter and then gone. So the phase out is much faster, but it's 3 times the number of vehicles. And the EV manufacturers, especially like Tesla, are making a whole lot more cars per quarter than they were back when the other one expired. So now that final quarter at 50%, they can make 250, 300,000 cars during that time. That's a lot of vehicles. So this is great news. It has to go through the legislative process still, so it's not a done deal. But anything that gets more EVs on the road helps us get cleaner air, helps us get to a greener future, helps us have a future free from fossil fuels.
Thought he forgot.
There you go.
You worked it in.
What do you guys think? Oh, and before we jump into, I should also talk about that this has extensions to the solar investment tax credit. So that it extends that. So that's another thing that could help Tesla out, and of course get us green energy, which is great.
With how many cars Tesla and GM are selling these days, I imagine that they're going to blow through it in 1 year if either of them meets their targets.
Yes. Well, it's certainly, like you said, it's a changed world when it comes to number of sales per quarter for Tesla, certainly than when it was when this was actually running. So yeah, it's going to go away a lot quicker because they, even with 3 times the amount, they are selling more than 3 times the amount. So there's going to be a quick turnaround on this. But again, if you're out there and you qualify for a $7,000, plan around it. Start making plans now. If you want a car, wait to see if this actually becomes law, and if it does, take your chance then. Make your plans, understand the tax implications, talk to your accountant, make sure that you're qualifying for it, and then pull the trigger. So this is just an advance alert for those out there that can qualify. This might be your time.
Absolutely. Right. And they're going to base it on when you either get it delivered or when you pay for it. Very rarely will they base it on when you order it. So as soon as you hear that it's been approved and signed, go ahead and click that button, get it started.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. If you hesitate, you might miss this because it's going to go real fast.
Yeah.
We've all had friends miss it too.
Is the CyberTruck going to come out in time to hit this? That's
not for everybody.
They're as they start ramping, their volumes are going to be low. So if you're, number 100,000 in line, you're probably not going to be able to get this for a Cybertruck. I mean, just guessing. But we also don't know when this is going to pass. So if it doesn't take effect until 2022, that might be a whole different ball game, and maybe those Cybertrucks will be rolling off the line then, and you'll be able to get it for $7,000 cheaper.
But if it takes effect in April, will we see, like we saw in Canada, where the Model Y didn't qualify even though it came out before the program ended, and then a couple of people did get it to qualify because they crammed it in there right before the program was expired.
Yeah, that was Model 3. They pushed them all together and qualified for it. So it was a mass amount of rebates that were cashed in as the program was fading into the sunset. So yeah, I'm sure Tesla will try whatever they can to allow it to benefit as many people as they can. But we'll have to see when this gets passed. And certainly, if you're out there, keep your eye on this.
Absolutely.
Another story that just came out, which was very interesting to me, was that apparently there's a racetrack just north of LA called Buttonwillow in Buttonwillow, California, and they have been getting a plethora of Teslas because of their situation being just north of Los Angeles County, of Teslas coming out racing on their track. In fact, they've seen so many cars coming out, these EVs racing, that they're taking the impressive stance that they're going to be building a second track on land because of the amount of people that are racing their cars. This second track, they're also installing 16 superchargers at the track. So obviously, the vast majority, if not all of them, are Teslas coming out to race on that track. And that is something that is great to see, that it's starting to infiltrate into the racing world, because of course that allows people to modify cars, that allows people to talk about these electric vehicles in a different way. This is not about efficiency. This is not about fuel savings. This is about just the fun of the sport of the fast acceleration and hard cornering. This is something that is great to see, that it's starting to take on, and building a second track and adding 16 superchargers certainly leads us to believe that it's certainly alive and well in North Los Angeles County. So that is good to see. We'll have to see when that track gets christened.
I love taking my car track days.
You haven't?
Now, Casey, you've gone out on a track a few times with the Model X, correct?
I have. A couple drag races and a couple circuit tracks. And it's a blast. You follow the rules. If you get to... Some of these events actually have qualified instructors there. And so if you go in as a class with a qualified instructor on board, your insurance company will often give you a discount for taking the class.
Oh, wow.
As long as it's not a race, because they don't cover that.
No. It might go the other way.
Yeah, get some racing insurance. Yeah, I can see why the Teslas are popular there, but some of those gas cars might not be happy getting their butts whipped over and over by these electric cars.
Seen that too.
But yeah, here in Portland, the famous car here is the White Zombie, and that was exactly the tack that he took was let's make this a really exciting car that blows the doors off of the gas cars. Let's not talk about efficiency. If that's what you want, that's fine. But there's a whole nother audience that cares about performance. And John Whalen is the guy who made the car, and with his crew. And it had a 0 to 60 time of 1.9 seconds. And this is 10 years ago. And I was just like, what? That's got to be a typo, right? I mean, that's... and he was like, nope, that's for real. And Teslas are finally getting down into that range for their Plaid and Plaid Plus. So it's really cool to see that you need to... This is why we need a whole variety of vehicles, right? You need to be able to bring in people from all walks of life, all interests, regardless of their political views or whatever. I want everybody driving electric. I don't need everybody to think like I do to make that happen. I need them to, wherever they are, have a vehicle that meets them, not the other way around.
That's right.
Yep. And that variety of vehicles and models will do that, definitely.
I get a bunch of comments on my videos. Oh, I need an F-250, or I need an off-roader. I'm like, great. Just wait a couple months. It'll happen.
Yeah.
It's all coming.
Just because you like stuff that's not electric yet doesn't mean you don't like electric. It just means that they don't make what you want yet.
Right. That's hard for some people to think that they live in the now.
Oh, yeah.
And speaking of the subject of the Model S Plaid doing 1.9 second 0 to 60, that brings us to our next topic, which is about Elon hitting the Joe Rogan Podcast for a third time. This time for a record-breaking almost 3.5 hours of conversation time. I don't know about the two of you, but I had to break it up. I couldn't watch 3.5 hours. I broke it up into three pieces so I could get through it with still being able to function.
I started it in the morning when I came down to do my work, and then at every time there was a meeting, I had to hit pause, have my meeting, go back about 10 seconds, figure out where it was, and then I finished it by I think an hour and a half after the workday was over.
Yeah, I did the same. I just had it on in the background during the day as I was doing other work. And it was nice because we just got Spotify. And so this came out on Spotify first instead of, 2 weeks later that it comes out on the other services or whatever. So I was able to listen to it the day it came out, which was great.
And of course, during this marathon, there was a huge amount of subjects that were covered and reinforced and discussed.
Yeah.
We're gonna touch on a few of them.
No, we're gonna spend 4 hours going over all.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll also notice that Joe was feeding Elon some alcohol during it, and it started to take its effect partway through the interview, I would say.
It's better than him smoking, so I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm glad that he didn't even tempt him with that.
Yeah,
he mentioned it, didn't he?
He mentioned it, and he said we probably shouldn't go there, and Elon agreed. So, but one of the interesting pieces was the revealing that Elon had reached out to the Biden administration and asked them about imposing a carbon tax, and then they discussed the carbon tax and the different pieces of it with Joe, and it makes a lot of sense. Putting a price on carbon, allowing the industry and people that use carbon to factor in that it costs them money. Yes, there may be tax credits, there may be things they get back based on their the family income or what the government is trying to push us towards in order to meet the goals of carbon reduction. But the Biden administration basically indicated apparently that it was too hard of a hill to climb at this particular point in time. So that was interesting to hear. Another thing, go ahead,
comment. Yeah, the carbon tax, I think it's a great idea. Canada has a small carbon tax. It's whatever, a third of a cent. It's not a lot, but that kind of mechanism allows, exactly like you said, for the market to price that externality, so it's not just trashing the commons. And that's exactly what we need. It's just really too bad that it was considered politically too difficult. It is the right thing to do. And one of the comments is that could be way too regressive of a tax, and it would become a huge burden on lower income people because they spend a lot higher percentage of their income on energy for gasoline and electricity and other things. And that's why you have some rebate program as part of that, so that that gives some certain amount of usage to everybody without this additional tax, and then above that it's taxed. So yeah, there are ways around it, and it is the right answer, and I really wish we would just do it already.
Yeah, he made the analogy that what if throwing garbage out was absolutely free and there was no recourse to it? Guess what? We'd be all living in garbage up to our eyeballs because there's no recourse for it. It's just easy to throw it out the door. and that's it. Get it onto the street, and it's away from you. And that's exactly what's happening with carbon, basically.
Yeah, people will be throwing their chamber pots out the window, which has happened in history. Yes,
exactly.
What I find most annoying about it is that the party named after conserving the environment and that's founded the EPA is the same one that is making this so difficult. I mean, yeah, whatever you do is not perfect, but if you do something, you can put it out there and refine it.
Yeah. Who was the Secretary of State under Trump that came from Exxon? I forget his name. He was for a carbon tax, and this is a guy who came from the oil industry, and he was like, no, that's the right thing to do. And if you structure it properly, it's not going to be devastating to the industry. It'll actually... Anyway, yeah, we have a lot of topics. Let's move on.
Next, there was the topic of solar car charging. Where does that come from? Is it going to get any better? Will we at one point be able to charge our cars with the sun by it just sitting in a parking lot? And basically, Elon went over this like 3 times and basically said no. You're never going to get to the point where solar is efficient enough to pull in enough sunlight to charge the car with any meaningful amount. But he did say, if you have a larger surface, for example, a van that would have a tri-fold area that would fold the solar out to be 3 times the size of the van roof, then at that point, you could probably collect about 35 miles of range per day with an array of that size. So he talked about having the ability to charge that maybe at a campsite or someplace where you've got the vehicle just sitting, and then it becomes something that's possible. But as it sits with physics and the ability to charge PV at this point, it's really, even if you cover the car entirely with solar panels, the body panels, everything, there still is not enough there. You have to get to a type of a van in order to have a large enough surface area to make it matter.
Or a smaller, more fuel-efficient car like the Aptera.
Yeah, I noticed that was not mentioned.
I liked how Joe kept prodding him. He's like, what if you get more efficient panels? What if you do better fuel efficiency? And he's like, well, with a 4-wheel family sedan, you're not going to get more fuel efficient. And that's where that Aptera comes in. Drop a wheel, make it smaller.
Drop a wheel and make it more aerodynamic.
Yes.
A lot more slipperier for air, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I have solar panels on my house, and they make more than enough to charge my car for 100,000 miles a year. And that's obviously I drive a lot less than that, especially now. So solar panels on your house and an electric car are a great combination, and it's trying to put in the extra cost to make the car solar powered just doesn't make sense. You're often in a garage or not parked at the right angle or whatever, where on your roof they know what angle it is and they can face it where southerly, and it makes a lot more sense to do solar on a house than on a car.
And they're huge. We're talking 3 foot by 5 foot, and they weigh what, 15 to 20 pounds for a light one.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot bigger than they were 10 years ago. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Next, hovering Roadster. They talked a little bit about this supercar that's coming, and Elon said, I want the car to hover. And Joe said, really? You mean like really hover? Like Back to the Future hover? And he said, yeah, I want the car to hover. He said, obviously, we have to keep in mind it's got to be safe. But I'd like to see it hover 3 feet or so off the ground and be able to move itself a little bit. And they talked about the gas thrusters, how it would work, and about the different options of putting it behind a license plate to make it to be a fast acceleration. And of course, talked about these gas thrusters are taking up the spot of the 2 half seats in the back of the car, and they would be able to compress the air, take that in at other points, fill the tanks, and then they'd be able to do this bit of a trick with the car. So I don't know. It's sounding again. This is Elon at his best. When he's talking about he wants this to happen, he typically gets his way. So I'm not going to be surprised if we actually see a Roadster that hovers a little bit off the ground.
I'm curious about the behind the license plate bit, because that's not legal in a lot of jurisdictions. So I'm curious if it's going to just kind of pop out, but without folding down, or if it's going to just blast in front of the plate.
Yeah, I
imagine
the plate will not move because you're right. That would be illegal. But going just below the plate or pushing it, close to it, obviously is what could happen. But interesting news. We're certainly going to be following it as these Roadsters in the SpaceX package go into production.
Yeah, I'd be worried about that. If you ever get one and you're going to do this party trick, make sure there's no kids or dogs around that when it's 3, 5, 6 feet off the air that they decide to run under it for fun. Don't do that.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that autopilot is the only way that this thing can run, and it'll take care of the rest.
So they got into that conversation because they were talking about the Model S Plaid doing a 1.96 second 0 to 60 run. Joe was impressed that the car that he currently has, which is a Model S Performance, I believe, he was shocked to hear that car will now do what the Roadster was supposed to do. So sounds like Joe will be getting a Roadster, basically, from the conversation. But it was interesting to hear that now, as we've known, they've actually lowered the 0 to 60 time in the sedan to reach the Roadster amount. And who knows what the Roadster is going to do. There was no quote put on that. All they said was, it's going to be better. So we'll have to see what that number eventually turns out to be. Another interesting point was about the CyberTruck. We knew some of this about limited production at the end of this year, and with all things going right, of course, volume production into 2022. But Joe asked specifically to Elon, hey, can I come pick up my truck at the factory? And Elon said, absolutely. We're going to have deliveries at the factory where you can come pick your car up or truck up from the end of the line and drive it off into the sunset. So it was interesting to hear that confirmed again.
Yes. I hope that means Texas doesn't have the stupid car tax laws that California has. I've told the story on here. So when we ordered our Model X, the plan was to fly down, go to Disneyland, then go to Fremont, do a factory tour, and then drive home in our brand new Model X. That was our plan. And then I was talking to my sales representative about it. He said, well, if you do that, if you take delivery in California, you have to pay California sales tax. And I'm like, what? No, I'm from Oregon. We don't have a sales tax. And he said, yeah, but that's the way the California law is written. And I'm like, what? No, there's no, and it was 9%. And this is the most expensive vehicle I've ever purchased. I'm not going to pay an additional 9% to the state I don't even live in.
Right.
So they totally destroyed the whole vacation plan, and we just had it delivered to our, to here. And so, yeah, California, they missed a bunch of tourism dollars by having that stupid law in place.
Yeah, I think there's two ways this could go. One, Joe moved to Texas, so he would be subject to whatever's there.
That's true.
And then two, Texas tends to be a little more open.
Wild West?
Wild West, yeah, there you go. and so I imagine that it will be easier for more people to pick up their car from Texas than California has made it to pick up the cars from Fremont.
I hope so. Yeah.
Also, in the show, they talked a little bit about Austin becoming a huge boom town.
Again,
talked about why Elon and Joe both moved from California to Texas.
So they could freeze.
So they could freeze and have the power go down. So it was interesting to hear the reason, and that Austin is very much like California. They both of them commented on this. The people, the feeling of the city, it's very much that way, and they believe that Austin is going to have an incredible boom on population, probably the largest in the U.S. They believe per capita. So that's kind of interesting to hear. Another point of interest is they talked a little bit about the gas industry. Elon does not want the gas industry to be demonetized. He doesn't want the stock market to take the money out of the oil and petroleum stocks because he knows that they're going to have to continue to operate. We are still going to be burning fuel, just at a far lesser pace for transportation purposes. But there is definitely a need for fuel, and they're not the evil empire. He talks about people that worked in that industry all their lives before carbon was a front page issue, before we knew that there were issues with it. So he talked about how he doesn't want people to believe that they need to be demonetized. We're going to be using fuel for some time in the future, but to reduce those transportation CO2 amounts, we can do that on our own without it and burn far less of that fuel going forward. So that was kind of an interesting note.
I have no sympathy for the "we didn't know" argument. Exxon knew from the 40s and 50s, and then they just hid it.
Well, some of them knew, certainly. Some of them in power knew. But you know what? A lot of the
people, individual people don't need punishment.
People that worked there, they had no clue.
Yeah.
Just like the rest of the public.
Right.
So.
Right, but everybody's aware now, so I'm going to just agree to disagree. Demonize away.
maybe ramp it or something. I don't know. But we don't have time or resources to play around with this. It needs to happen. We see that everything's getting more extreme as far as the weather is concerned. Droughts, fires, freeze events, and the storms themselves are just huge, and it's only getting worse.
Yeah, and I've plugged the Drilled podcast on here a couple times. They're still playing horrible shenanigans and trying to skirt the regulations and laws, and it's all well documented there. So, yeah, no sympathy, none.
Well, along with that, also there was a discussion about the Semi coming out with basically a smaller battery pack than we might have thought. They had indicated that a 500 kilowatt battery pack will reach about the 300 mile mark. So that, of course, is the lower mileage rig. There was a 300 and a 500 mile rig, but that 500 kilowatt amount is smaller than what we thought it might be to power that. So that led them on to the discussion of what Bill Gates had said recently about electric transports and how they weren't viable and it was not going to work. And they had a discussion around why would Bill say something like that? Why would there? And Elon, all he could say is, I don't believe he's connected with the facts on this particular issue. And who's better to know the facts, Bill or Elon, that has been working on this project now for a number of years. So that also led to another conversation where where there was the point brought up that Elon had heard from others that Bill was shorting the Tesla stock.
Allegedly.
And that also led to another story that we don't have listed here, where Bill the next day apparently made a public announcement about some great things he said about Elon and the cause for a green future and how the strides of Elon and company have benefited mankind. So it was kind of interesting to hear these different things happening. What is real? What's in the background? What's in the foreground? We really don't know, but there seems to be this type of struggle between, what Bill says and Bill does, Bill Gates. So not really sure what's going on there, but it is interesting to see these different pieces of the puzzle falling.
Absolutely.
So that's a roundup. Certainly you can watch the 3.5 hour. There's going to be a link. Actually, the link in the show notes, we'll have to get it changed to a Spotify link because it was on YouTube, but they took it down apparently. So we'll have to. Did
you cover Starship and SpaceX?
They talked about Starship and SpaceX a little bit as well. They talked about Mars. They talked about the how long it would take to get there. They talked about the ideal plan as to when to send ships. The number of the period of time it would take. What would happen first? Again, a lot of rehashing what we've heard already. I don't think there was anything that was new or new discovery that was indicated, but certainly a recap of what we've heard previously.
Yep. Cool.
With that, let's move on to, this is interesting. The European Union apparently has flexed its muscle a little bit and told Tesla that they are going to have to allow service documents to be able to be viewed by third-party technicians or service groups. So they are going to require Tesla to make their manuals basically available to others that would service vehicles. They're not going to allow Tesla to hold it as their own service and no one else can service. Now they can charge for this. They're apparently going to charge, per use or per time limit that they can, number of minutes or hours they get billed for. But this is interesting in the fact that Tesla has tried to hold everything themselves at this point across the world, that they are holding all this knowledge about the cars and they're not giving it out. People that do service outside of Tesla are doing it on their own. They have no connection officially to the Tesla manuals and information outside of what the public already has access to. So this is kind of interesting. And I believe it's correct. I understand that Tesla wants to hold it, but I look at problems in others that do this, like, for example, Massey Ferguson and tractors and others that hold all this information and then they use it. And again, I'm not saying Tesla's going to do this, but others have used this as a way to charge the customer even more for service. If they've got somebody that they know can fix the tractor, if they can't get that person to work on it because there's a lock, there's a software lock, or there's something that's preventing them from even installing a part without getting an update to the tractor. So there's a number of things like that that are happening in the farming industry that I'm not saying Tesla's going to do that, but this allows a walled garden to be there that any manufacturer could work in these type of ways. If you open it up and allow service to happen through others, and they pay for that right to do so, I don't see that being a big problem. Maybe Tesla does, but personally, I think it's the right call.
Looking at the article, the rates that they charge for the documents and software are almost, or sometimes more than most people charge for their technicians' time.
Well, of course, this is going to be something that someone would use once on that one problem, and then after that, they would know it.
Hopefully, but if you need the software, you're going to need the software each time.
If you need software, but if it's looking up things, if it's saying, what amperage is running through this particular wire, what should it be? Those type of things, I think that over time that will become second knowledge, that you won't have to go back to the database each and every time. But you're right, if they have to do an update, then they're going to have to use it.
But then there's also the matter that they do rolling changes on the car. So that may have been true on a 2021 and a half, but it won't be true on a 2021 and 9/10.
Right.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Mark. I fully support the right to repair.
Yeah.
If
absolutely.
you own something, you should be able to take it to whatever mechanic or service garage that you want. If you have a relationship with them and you trust them, great. They should be able to work on your vehicle that you've bought and paid for. This whole idea of making that proprietary information that's behind a walled garden is ridiculous. So absolutely. I'm glad the EU is stepping up.
And hopefully that will domino to other regions. So we'll keep an eye on that. Casey's got her next story about more charging.
More charging. So a little while ago, we talked about, 2 years now, we talked about EVGo had lashed a bunch of CHAdeMO adapters for Tesla to their DC fast charging stations. And,
in San Francisco, I believe it was.
Yes. And then around that same time, ChargePoint did something similar and got told to remove them, but EVGo did not. Apparently, they went through the proper channels, and that was the last we heard of it for quite some time. But in an article released this week, we find that they have now expanded the program, and you'll be able to find CHAdeMO adapters on more stations to get yourself taken care of when you're away from the Supercharger network.
Right. So apparently 400 stations that exist already are going to be added to the program.
Yes.
That will have a Tesla adapter added to those charging stations. And 200 new charging stations that are being built will already come with that adapter. So 600 additional stations will be given the ability to have a Tesla adapter.
I wonder if the new ones will have just like a third plug that is the Tesla handle, even if there's like hot gluing it to the to the channel.
I don't think hot gluing would give you a good idea. No.
No. but we know that the going the charge point solution of taking apart the connector and integrating it will not be looked upon favorably. So I'm curious what they do. I mean, I'm sure Tesla's got a way for them to do it officially if they just work with them.
Yeah. Now, what is interesting is that we had a little bit of a conversation on our Twitter feed. If you're not following already, it's at the Tesla Life. You can follow along there throughout the week. But there was the conversation of comparing, of course, this network to the Supercharger network. And my stance on this would be you can't even compare it. The Supercharger network is head and shoulders above the EVGo network and always will be, as far as I can see, based on past performance. But I have to say that having another 600 available chargers out there to fall back upon if Plan B is required, I'm all for that. They can keep adding them. I would never use the EVGo systems. Maybe just to try it, I might do that. But I would always use the Supercharger over an EVGo just because of speed and convenience and the ability to pay for it. But I would like to know that there is a Plan B out there. So if I am going to an area for whatever reason that I can't access a Supercharger, certainly having the knowledge that EVGo has this ability at these chargers as well would be a plus in my book.
So I've got direct experience with the EVGo network. They tend to be located in the city, whereas Superchargers tend to be located in between city pairs, but as a general, not as a rule. And the city I was in, Charleston, we had 3 EVGo stations and 0 Superchargers. The nearest Supercharger was a 90-minute drive one way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and a round trip, I don't recall. Either way, it was 90 minutes every time I needed to use that. But I had my CHAdeMO adapter, and I could go to one of 3 zones in the city and juice back up. When I was running Uber with the Model S, I did that. So if it was a nice little dip in the traffic and it was a profitable day and I didn't want to go home, I would eat my lunch in the car and get enough to continue for the rest of the evening before going home to charge up from empty to full. But it'd be enough of a boost to go for another couple hours. And the rates were reasonable as well.
Yep.
So for somebody who doesn't want to spend the 400 to 600, depending on what the going rate is at the time for the CHAdeMO adapter, EVGo has taken that hit for you now.
Very good. And Casey's got our next story. What's it about?
So we kind of touched on this with the Joe Rogan Experience, or Joe Rogan, whatever they're calling it now that's on Spotify. Joe Rogan and Elon.
I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we talked about how the battery on the Tesla Semi might only be 500 kilowatt hours instead of what we had estimated to be 800 to a megawatt hour, 800 kilowatt hours to 1 megawatt hour for the short range truck. And based on what we were talking about earlier and what I'm seeing in these articles and everybody's math, we might still see 1 megawatt hour packs for the long range truck. But even that saves you on weight, it saves you on cost, and it's just a good run all around. And then they also talked about Convoy Mode would be another way to extend the fuel efficiency of these vehicles, because now they can run a lot closer together. They'll be tube-shaped vehicles, basically, because the trailers don't change, but the closer you can run them together, the less drag you get in between each car. So
you've got a truck train, is how they put it, traveling on the road. And think about the economics of that. You've got 3 trucks apparently that will run in convoy mode, or could, so it could be 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And that second truck is not going to require a driver at all, nor the third. So basically, you'll be moving 3 times the amount of product with just the 1/3 cost. That was a little bit higher. You haven't got a driver cost for the other 2.
Right.
So it's interesting to see that being able to enable this is going to allow the bigger carriers out there that do multiple shipments to maybe wait and ship all 3 trucks at the same time with a single driver, get to some sort of a depot outside of the arrival city, break them up into separate trucks that the drivers then will be with them to go into different city points. So very interesting that Elon believes that this is, it's not being taken. People are not thinking about this completely yet because, of course, it's not out there yet.
Right.
But the economics of it are going to be an incredible advantage for people that subscribe to this type of service.
And you can run full-length trailers this way. Yeah, there are some states where you can run doubles, but the doubles are not full-length. And so if you can run, or you can run one truck with 2 doubles, who knows? Whatever works out best for your economics.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's curious to me, I mean, obviously this will work. The only thing that's curious to me is how they will deal with jacklegs running in between the convoy. How aggressive will it be about getting back together?
Well, they did mention that it will allow cars to go in between.
Yeah, because it's running autopilot. Yeah.
They will back up and go forward based on that spacing, and they can dial in the spacing as well to say, okay, a safe distance would be, X amount of feet, 60 feet, say, and they can lock that in. If a car goes in between, the trucks will drop back a little bit to get that safe spot again, and when that car leaves, they'll move up to the 60 feet again. So just like autopilot, it's taking account of what is around it and interacting with that.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not afraid of it running people over. I'm afraid more or less of if they have regs on them as far as how far apart they can be, and then somebody interrupts that. Like, how do they like? It's taking the fork to the right. Obviously, all the trucks know what to do. They're running full self-drive, but how will that affect their legality? It'll be interesting to watch and see how it deals with bad drivers.
Yeah, that's interesting. How are they? Are these trucks directly communicating with each other?
Yep.
And if so, over what range? And if someone gets in between them and slows down, then that means the lead vehicle is going to have to slow down as well, so it doesn't get too far ahead of the rest of the convoy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because it'll be that lead truck's responsibility to make sure the other 2 are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Otherwise, they'll be liable.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So
it'll be a whole new world.
An interesting world to watch. For
yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Next,
put ropes.
It's just ropes. That's all it is. Nothing impressive. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the ModelNext, the $25,000 car that Tesla is putting out. We talked about this a little bit last week, but this week there were like 4 other stories about it, and there seems to be a lot of smoke when they're talking about this. So could there be fire? Not good to talk in a battery story, I realize, but when there's smoke, there's fire is the saying. And there is a lot of smoke, a lot of talk about the ModelNext and what's going on here. And it is, we've heard from the Chinese government, we've heard from local and federal authorities there. We've heard about a new speed up of a build at another build at Tesla Shanghai. New building being planned. We've heard about testing on roads in China. So there's a lot of things at play here, and they all keep pointing to some sort of an unveil for I guess a big Chinese auto show that happens in November of 2021. So that's some speculation. Obviously, Tesla does their own unveils. They're not going to unveil anything alone at an auto show, I would believe. They would bring it there certainly after they've unveiled it. But there's a lot of talk about this, and I'm starting to get excited. Hopefully, we will hear something about this car between now and the third quarter of this year, because it may only be released in China to start, and that makes sense if it's going to be made there. But also, I'm hoping that this car also comes to North America. It would be a huge boom for Tesla to have a $25,000 US car available that would do, say, 250 miles. That would be huge for Tesla. It would allow them to jump into a market that they have no visibility in at all currently. And I would really look forward to hearing about this.
Yeah, and when you combine their record for safety, plus the fact that it's a hatchback, I mean, this would be an enormously useful vehicle for all markets. And I don't know that you would really even feel that it's a drop in experience either, because the Teslas are already a minimalist experience and everything's in the screen. So I'm thinking, as far as the user is concerned, the driver, you might only see just a smaller screen and maybe a little less soft touch materials or something. I mean, if they cast this thing in the casting machines, they could keep the experience really high without inflating that price.
Oh, that would be cool if they could do a single piece casting for not just a front casting and rear casting, but just a whole, just boom, stamp, there's a car. Boom, stamp, there's a car.
That'd be awesome. Yes.
Yep. So hopefully we'll hear something about this during 2021. But there is a lot of stories about it. So and there's a lot of leaks from not Tesla, from outside of the Tesla world. So
do you guys think it'll be like K-car sized, or I mean, because you got to leave room for the Model 3 to be an upgrade to this thing.
Right.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they'll go with the same adage. Will it be maybe 10 to 20% smaller than the Model 3? You know, will they use that same type of ruler that they did between the S and the 3?
Yeah, like, are you going to be looking at something like a Candy, or are you going to be looking at something like a Honda Fit or Civic? I mean, because the Civic is still substantially smaller than the Model 3, even though they look the same.
I would hope that it would be Civic's size. That would be really good.
That would be a perfect size for this country.
Yep. With that, Patrick's got our next story about another manufacturing country, possibly.
That is right. So this is coming to us from Drive Tesla Canada, and it is titled "Tesla to set up its first manufacturing unit in India." So welcome to the game, India. So this is right now, we don't have anything official from Tesla as far as I know, but we do have things from people in India. So the chief minister of Karnataka has in the South India region, that's their tech hub. And the only Hindi I know is swear words and food. So
no, we're not going there.
So forgive my pronunciations, because that was neither. That was a region. I do have some Indian friends. They've taught me a few things I'm not going to say on this show. So this makes sense. That's the right region. It fits with the ethos of Tesla. They would be able to find the talent they need in that part of the country. And there was a budget speech from, his name is B.S. Yandi Yurappa. And he announced that Tesla's manufacturing unit is on the list of things that are coming to the region. So one of the region's ministers also tweeted out that an R&D unit would open. However, that tweet was quickly removed. So there's definitely a lot of chatter about something happening in India. And they have a booming high-tech center, so it makes sense that this would be the right spot. What do you guys think?
So, and speaking with a couple of my Indian viewers, there are a couple of really key concerns here that make this a great idea. The first being that the folks in India would prefer not to have a car made in China. The next is that you've got your taxes and other tariffs and surcharges that come with importing a car into India. So if you build it local, very much like Singapore and the Koreas, that sort of area where you've got these just massive markups on the taxes. And with it being a large enough region, it could be worth building cars there for, self-consumption, but as well as a second export should you have anything happen with the now 3 Chinese factories.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's in southern India, they have access to seaports, so they could ship them.
Yeah, I think it's another win for Tesla. And I know that India has been actively courting Tesla for some time. They want Tesla there. They want the expertise of a tier one EV manufacturing, developing cars in their country. They want the employment. They want the prestige. So many countries want this, and certainly Tesla is now at a point where they're the bit of the rock star out there that people are clamoring to get them to come to their country as well. So I think this is a big win for Tesla because as time goes along, if they do open up a manufacturing plant in India, that again could supply not only India but the local region. It gives them another point on the Asian continent to spread cars out from and become a backup or a secondary for a market that may be consuming more cars than they believe or had planned on. So it's a plus whenever they can move to another country and start up another wing that build those same cars.
Absolutely. And to clarify, when I said 3 factories, they're all Giga Shanghai, but they have literally just started a 3rd phase in Shanghai. It's going swimmingly, super fast as usual.
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely what they do there in Shanghai.
That's for sure. A last story just to touch upon. Elon apparently over the weekend sent out a Twitter note to Vladimir Putin of Russia and invited him to connect on a Clubhouse meeting. Now, Clubhouse is an app, a video and connection app that is available for people to use as a meeting, as a get-together for friends, whatever. What's interesting is that the Kremlin responded favorably. We don't know if the meeting is going to take place or has taken place, but that's Elon just reaching out on Twitter, and apparently the Kremlin responded favorably to the request.
I'm curious what they'll discuss, and I really hope that Elon uses a fresh phone, not on his Wi-Fi, with only the Clubhouse app on it.
Yeah, I would think that there would be a lot of security in place for the local network and whatever he's using to communicate with. Better do it on a burner phone.
Exactly what I'm saying. He can afford to burn an iPhone. Just make an iPhone, used iPhone 6 or something.
So we shall see. Well, with that, let's roll the credits. Patrick, anything to promote this week? Any new stories coming out on your blog?
Yes, I blogged about the power outage we had and how the power walls performed, and I collected data on the state of charge every half hour and tried to estimate how long they would have lasted. And the usage was higher than I thought, and I think some of that might have been because it was super cold out and our power walls are outside, that they have their own heating system. And so that was burning a few more watts than I expected. And so now I'm wishing I had 6 power walls instead of 3.
Got one in the garage.
Yeah, Casey, I might buy that from you. That's just like with the cars, buy as much battery as you can afford. If you're getting power walls, throw in an extra power wall or 2.
Yeah. If you can.
Yeah, so that's at carswithcords.net. You can find it there. And I'm with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at oeva.org. Thank you.
Very good. Casey, anything to promote here today?
Sure do. Let me get a little PSA before I get started. I've heard that some folks that still have power in Texas are able to be charged up to $900 to charge their Model S. So keep an eye on your rates if you have the variable rate plan, and maybe set your car to not charge if you can, or at least not during the high peak rates.
So that's not in a supercharger. That's in their garage.
That's in their garage.
That's a home charge.
Yeah.
Wow. The utilities are just jerking people over if they're charging that much for electricity.
These are private enterprises. These aren't regular utilities.
Right, but I mean that's just like it's price gouging.
Oh, it
people
certainly is.
Need this energy to run their lives. It's just like food, water, internet access, healthcare. These are vital things that shouldn't be gouged.
I think the way they're getting around being charged with gouging is that they're just saying that they're going for whatever the market rate is, and since Texas is its own market, they have to pay the markup that Texas has to pay.
Someone needs to go to jail. That's all I'm gonna say.
Absolutely. So what I've got to plug is I've got a couple of videos I put out this week, and I've got one more that's trying to come out, but YouTube is choking on it because it's an 8K 460 video. By the time it does release, you'll be able to view it at whatever resolution your phone or TV or computer can actually handle. So don't worry about it being 8K. Unless you have 8K, then enjoy it. You can find that at youtube.com/KCGreen. That's KACEYGREEN.
Very good. We'd like to thank Lee Moon for the music we use every week, and we would like to thank you for watching us this week. Please download us next week and find out what's going on in the Tesla life.
Thank you, Lee Moon.
Hey, give us a thumbs up at this point.
If the subscribe button is red, turn it gray.
Stay positive.
Good night, everyone.